as we look at the map of Central Asia, we are looking at a huge area which has about 70 million people living in it. And obviously the region has a lot of environmental issues. If we were to look country by country, what would you say are the most pressing problems in each of them?
You know, actually there are lots of environmental problems, but they are similar. So if you don't mind, I'm not going to do it country by country, but talk regionally. And I want to talk of three things, really. The first is climate, the second is natural resource management, and the third is pollution. Because the problems are similar across the countries. Talking first of climate, you know, you're from the region, that the waters in the region are fed by glaciers and by snowpack. And snow is an amazing thing. I mean, literally a miracle of nature. You have the snowfall in winter, it stays there up there on the mountains, kind of locked away. And when it gets warmer, it turns to water and it comes down in the growing season. So it comes exactly when it's needed, the water. When it gets too warm, what happens is it comes too fast. And when it comes too fast, you get floods. And then in the growing season, when you need the water, there isn't enough. So what happens is you get droughts. So you get both floods and droughts. And what has happened already, we know that temperatures in the region, average annual temperatures, are much higher, 0.6 of a degree higher in the south and 1.5 degrees higher in the north. And what that has meant is that already since the 1900s, the glaciers have lost a third of their volume. And we also know that we've had those floods and droughts in the lowlands. And that, I think, is a serious challenge now. But looking forward is going to be an even bigger challenge. The World Bank came out with a report, Turn Down the Heat. It's called Confronting the New Climate Normal. And that basically projects that the glaciers could lose 50% of their volume in a 2 degrees centigrade warmer world. If the world is 4 degrees centigrade warmer, they could lose 75% of their volume. Not only that, there'll be kind of periods of heat extremes. And if you look at all of that together, it basically means that there'll be too much water coming down too quickly. And then in the latter half of the century, there'll be too little water because the glaciers won't be there.
What you hear a lot in the region is that, well, we're predominantly agricultural country, so we don't really have to worry about industrial pollution, right? But at the same time, if you talk to the farmers, they complain of two things. One is the lack of water when they need it, and the second is the quality of soil. They complain of soil erosion. These are major environmental issues too, right, for the region?
Absolutely right, and actually 50 to 75% of that population that you talked about in the region lives in the rural areas and are mainly subsistence farmers, pastoralists. Again, the bank actually just came out with a report this week. It's called Shock Waves. It looks specifically at climate and the effect of climate shocks on the poor, so on poverty. And essentially that report says that the shocks of climate, so changing climate, can actually affect the gains that we can get from poverty eradication. So people, and you know this, I mean, you're a farmer, if your crop doesn't grow, if there isn't enough water, it floods, it's wiped out for that year, it's a massive economic loss. So it's what brings people back down into poverty or keeps them in poverty. So these are absolutely critical issues that apply very much in this region.
And we know that the World Bank runs several projects to help the region.
One that's ongoing, there's an environmental land management and rural livelihoods project in Tajikistan. And basically that project is helping farmers, predominantly farmers in the rural areas, improve land management practices. exactly what you're talking about, so that water is used more efficiently, you have less soil erosion, and it's already that project kind of has reached 35,000 people, beneficiaries.
The drying of the Aral Sea has undoubtedly been one of the devastating disasters of our time. And you've been studying the region for a long time. Has there been any progress in terms of saving the area? We know that the sea is continuing to dry, but we know that there's been some progress on the Kazakh side. But anything that you can point to, because we've been talking about how bad things are for a long time. We keep on repeating the same facts. But the international community has also been working on it for decades now. Any progress you see?
I'm not an expert on the Aral Sea. We do have experts on that. But what I can tell you, knowing about climate, climate involves really two or three things. One is being much more efficient in terms of our use of these resources. One of the things this area suffers from is, if you like, it's known as water and energy intensive, which means you're not really maximizing the economic production that you can get from that use of energy and water. So I think a major path forward in terms of being more resilient to climate is being very conscious of your energy and water use at an individual level, as well as at a broader community and a business level. Just being conscious that literally those drops of water or the energy that you use needs to be conserved and used. It is a very precious resource.
As you know, accountability is a major factor here. How to hold who accountable for these issues? Obviously, you have to hold the relevant sides accountable so that you start working on the solutions.
I think for me, accountability kind of lies with everybody, because accountability is about doing the right thing and doing the right thing at every level. So accountability lies, as I said, with the individual, with communities, with the private sector, with the government. The government has a role in terms of putting in place regulations in a way to change behavior in such a way that people are more conscious of resources, and also of sanctioning bad behavior.
As someone who's been studying this field and focusing on Central Asia, do you see a young generation of experts like you who are focusing on these issues in the region? Because obviously for every country you need good specialists. You need people who are going to carry out these tasks, starting from making people aware to saving the environment. What kind of progress do you see over the years?
You're absolutely right. This is crucial because ultimately it's people that make the difference. Certainly there's been a lot of interest. I'm finding as our teams have gone out and talked about climate, and you have, I think I see quite a few on the education side, much more of a focus on this. Globally, this is something we're seeing much more of an interest in. I hope that also happens in Central Asia and continues. Ultimately, it's the people. If you want to make a difference, it's people that make the difference, and you need the professionals. But actually, also it's just ordinary people just understanding the need that the resources that we have are scarce and that we need to conserve and use them in the best way possible so that we can leave something for our children. And that you don't need to be an expert for.
Well, thank you.